Hello and welcome to Powers of the People with me, Graeme Pryce. Well, I have to say, I've been trying to write this video for a good few weeks now. This is the fourth script I've written for it, and I'm certain there's a few things I've missed out that you can remind me of in the comments if you want. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Tommy's idiotic, gullible simps that will comment too, but that's all good. I'm not trying to build an echo chamber here. But let's be honest. If you're a person who has critical thinking skills, isn't a racist prick, and isn't as gullible as a 5-year-old putting out carrots for Santa's reindeer, then you're unlikely to have very much time for Mr. Waxley Lennon, are you? The reason I've stumbled in researching and writing this video is because there's just so much twattery to choose from where Tommy Robinson is concerned. I did thinking about changing it to the top 5 crimes of Tommy Robinson, but that idea never got very far either. And in the interests of consistency and some vague interpretation of entertainment, I've decided to stick to form and just tell you the 5 main reasons I think Tommy is a twat. He definitely is, and here are my top 5 reasons I think so, in no particular order, right after this. I was just looking at my channel analytics and I noticed that 53% of people who watch my videos weren't subscribed. The pain. Come on, just have a quick check that you've subbed, liked and rang the bell. Make a skinny old scouser a little bit happier today. Now, I'm going to ease into this one by saying Tommy Robinson grew up in Luton. Yeah, I know. Probably explains a lot, doesn't it? I'll just share a little anecdote with you that I might have mentioned before, but I'm 110 videos in now, so it's hard to remember what I've told you before. But my eldest brother lived in Luton for a while, and me and my old Scouse mum went down to see him on more than one occasion. One time he took us to the town centre and I waited outside a branch of W.H. Smith's while me bro and me ma went in to buy 20 Embassy No. 1 and half an ounce of Old Oban, respectively. Looking up and down the street while I waited outside, I was quite shocked to see that I could barely spot a single white person in the general detritus of people passing by. Coming from where I come from, it did give me quite a unique insight into why you often hear the gammons cry, "I feel like a foreigner in my own country." There were very few white people, I have to be honest. You know, you had to look for them. Almost every woman that passed by was wearing a hijab, and almost every man was bearded and wearing a thorb. I think that's what they're called, a thorb. So I'm going to start by giving Tommy an inch here. He has a point when he says there are too many Muslim and Asian people in Luton. But that's all I will give him, though, because while most people would think this was maybe a disturbing truth about their own hometown and maybe write to their MP or join a few local demonstrations, Tommy didn't think like that. No. Tommy recognised the simmering unrest in Luton and various similar towns and cities in the UK and decided to capitalise on it. He realised that he could profit from confected rage and threw his full effort into spreading hatred instead. I wanted to start by saying that I do recognise that the situation in the UK can be complicated and that everybody who follows Mr. Waxy Lemon is necessarily a racist twat. A lot are, obviously. And I'm not for one moment suggesting we should listen to the concerns of those who set fire to hotels or beat up taxi drivers because they had brown faces in July. But if any fans of the coke-fueled deceptive one do watch this, I'd like them to get a little bit further in than the first section. Let's be honest though. Tommy didn't take his concerns and act on them in a sensible, fair and impartial way. He took them and used them as a crowbar to open a life full of racist grifting, didn't he? Yeah. Tommy has quite an interesting history, and it's surprising that so many people who used to follow the Tories, the party of law and order, have switched over to supporting Tommy. Mr. Slack Wee Lemon has a very long history of involvement with the law, and he's served many sentences that the majority of his supporters probably don't know very much about. Let's just run through them in this section without dwelling too much on the reasons or outcome. We might explore those a little later in the video. Robinson's criminal record includes convictions for violence, financial and immigration fraud, cocaine possession with intent to supply, and various public order offences. In April 2005 at Luton Crown Court, Robinson was convicted of assault occasioning actual bodily harm and assault with the intent to resist arrest against an off-duty police officer. In July 2011, at Luton and South Bedfordshire Magistrates Court, Robinson was convicted of using threatening, abusive or insulting behaviour. He pleaded guilty to that one. In October 2012, Robinson was arrested and held on the charge of having entered the United States illegally. He had used a passport in the name of Andrew McMaster, a friend of his, to board a Virgin Atlantic flight from London Heathrow to New York. He pleaded guilty to that one as well. In November 2012, Robinson was charged with 3 counts of conspiracy to commit fraud by misrepresentation in relation to mortgage applications, along with 5 other defendants. He pleaded guilty to that one too. On the 10th of May 2017, Robinson was charged with contempt of court and convicted. He pleaded guilty to that one as well. In 2018, Robinson was jailed for almost collapsing the Huddersfield grooming gang trial. This is the one that Elon Musk is telling lies about all over Twitter at the moment and trying to use to attack and smear Labour, and particularly attack Jess Phillips and Keir Starmer. After a Syrian refugee boy was assaulted in a school bullying incident in October 2018, Robinson falsely accused the victim of having previously attacked 2 schoolgirls. This was a complete fabrication, which Tommy has since admitted lying about, but his followers continue to believe the lies instead of actually listening to the man himself. Right-wing racists refusing to believe facts. What a shocker. In 2021, Tommy released a documentary that was financed by the far-right conspiracy group InfoWars in America, a site owned by Alex Jones. You know, the guy who accused the people who had had their children literally murdered during the Sandy Hook shooting massacre of being liars. Accused the people who had filmed grieving afterwards of being crisis actors, and that has expressed full support for the lies, misogyny, fascist tendencies and election fraud deception of Donald Trump. Surprisingly enough, considering the Tories were in office, the institutions of the UK actually held up, and Tommy wasn't allowed to release his documentary in the UK, mostly because it contained clear and blatant misinformation. Unfortunately, he was allowed to release it in various European countries, and he capitalised on this by making sure it was acknowledged by some of the far-right organisations in places like Denmark, Germany and Hungary, where the far-right were enjoying a similar propaganda-fuelled rise to populist favour in much the same way that Reform UK and Nigel fucking Farage are now. As a result of this, the 16-year-old refugee that he targeted was attacked several times and found it impossible to continue living in his local community. Eventually, his whole family had to be taken into the witness protection programme because Tommy Robinson had made a whole documentary telling lies about them. Let's just be clear, Tommy included blatant disinformation in his documentary, proving irrefutable lies. And not just that, lies that he has since acknowledged were lies. As a middle-aged man of quite considerable means, he decided to attack a 16-year-old Syrian refugee and literally create a whole compendium of deception about him and his family because he knew it was exactly what his followers would lap up. Now, I don't doubt there will be a few of Tommy's cockwombles that will leave links to that documentary in the comments section below. If you do decide to watch it, just remember that when challenged about it in court, Mr. Waxy Lemon admitted that he told lies in that documentary. You see, the truth isn't something that Tommy is interested in. The truth isn't inflammatory enough for Mr. Robinson. I'd imagine it would seem odd if I didn't mention Elon Musk in this video after the events of the last few days, wouldn't it? Elon Musk is a hero to a lot of fucking dickheads who don't know anything about him. It's a bit like Tory supporters, reform voters, flat earthers and creationists and, you know, the kind of feelings-based knobheads who are incapable of critical thinking and just react like dumb, stupid sheep to things that people like Trump post on social media. So why is Elon Musk trying to promote Tommy fucking Robinson? It's because Elon, despite being the richest man in the world and having access to unimaginable wealth and information, has literally allowed himself to be brainwashed and indoctrinated by his own right-wing algorithms. I suppose this may be more of a reason that Elon Musk is a twat than Tommy Robinson, but let's be honest, you have to be an extreme right-wing bellend of pretty immense proportions to even get on Space Karen's radar, don't you? Mr. Slackly Fleming has achieved this and piqued Elon's interest. However, while he is shouting, "Free Tommy!" he is clearly unaware that Tommy is in prison for a crime that he pleaded guilty to. There's no question of free Tommy. You free people who haven't committed the crime, not people who have pleaded guilty. So does this mean Elon thinks people should not be imprisoned for deliberately lying? Is he suggesting Mr. Lack Bellend should be allowed to spread disinformation about Muslims and tell lies about refugees? It would seem so. And he shared a link to Tommy's discredited, dishonest and disgusting documentary very recently, despite knowing it had been banned in the UK. Well, Elon has thrown a spanner in the works now, hasn't he, by saying that he doesn't think Farage is quite good enough to lead Reform UK. Maybe that suggests he's so fucking stupid that he thinks Tommy Robinson is going to step in instead. What do you think? And so we've reached reason 5. I think this video will be one of those where there are multiple and justified people leaving comments saying, only 5 reasons, in the comment section, and of course they're obviously welcome to do so. I'm well aware of his lies about many other things and how obvious it is that he uses hatred of Muslims to fuel his coke habit and his holidays around the world. I'm aware of how much of an agitator he is and how the Farage riots in summer were also largely fueled by him and his posts on various social media sites. Although he was out of the country at the time on another holiday, paid for by his dumbass supporters. Now, I'm going to admit something that might surprise you here. I'm doing it for 2 reasons. 1, because I think it makes an excellent point. And 2, because I joined the EDL via their website in 2014. I did so because I wanted to be able to see deeper into an issue that I did believe was relevant and real at the time. I suppose some aspects of it still are, but not in the way that the EDL portray. I've since realised that it might not have been a brilliant idea, because now that I have a gathering audience, I do continually wonder if someone is going to dig up an old EDL member list and find me on it. I realised very, very quickly that I'd involved myself with some of the worst people in the UK. I'll just relate one interaction I had there. There was a post one day asking what could be used as the EDL anthem. I'd already realised by then that I'd made a mistake, but for the sake of hubris, I suggested the song All God's People by Queen from their album Innuendo that was released in 1991, shortly before the death of the greatest man to ever live, Freddie Mercury. I would guess that you know where I'm going with this. The responses were a combination of racist bastards telling me that we don't share the same fucking gods as them ragheads. Or maybe if they didn't worship a nonce, I'd agree with you, mate. And possibly the worst. Fuck off, dickhead. We don't want our anthem to be written by a fucking puff. Yeah. I have no idea if I can get into the archives of EDL and erase my name, but I don't really care. It would probably be dishonest to do so anyway. I consider it a valuable lesson. Tommy extricated himself from the EDL when it became obvious that being involved with them would hurt his image and damage his grift. He moved on to working with the Quilliam Foundation, who endeavour to soften the image of the most radical Muslims in the country and presents a frontage that is more reasonable than the extremists who were parading the streets at the time, calling for UK soldiers to burn in hell and for the poppy to be recognised as a symbol of oppression and to be allowed to implement Sharia law in the UK. I don't pretend that those people and those organisations don't exist. We all know about Anjem Chowdhury and Shamima Begum. Those of us that still think critically know there is a developing problem with some of these views in the UK. But Tommy isn't interested in that. Tommy just wants to use it to spread hateful and convenient racism in order to fund his massive coke habit. He doesn't actually care what the state of the UK is, and he doesn't care if Muslims are roaming the streets attacking people. I mean, they're not, but that's what he wants his followers to think. He couldn't give a shit if Muslims are calling for the death of LGBTQ people. He doesn't give a toss about them. He's too rich and privileged to even be remotely bothered by such things. He can easily afford to escape Luton these days. And he isn't one of those who says, I feel like a foreigner in my own country anymore, because he barely spends any time in his own country, except when he comes back, to spend a bit of time at His Majesty's pleasure. If you're a fan of Tommy and you got this far without collapsing into a pathetic pile of rage and racism, then I do commend you, because he has worked hard for many years to convince people like you that he's less of a twat than Samir Al-Hassad, who picked you up in his Uber last Thursday, or Aliyah Muhammad, who sold you a coffee in Costa last Sunday. He isn't. He's a fucking disgrace, and he shames our nation daily. In short, if you're a fan of Stiffy Slackballs Lemon, then you're a fucking gullible idiot. But you go ahead, tell me why I'm wrong in the comments, if you want. I'll wait. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I don't doubt that I'll be mentioning Robinson again in the future. He isn't going away, is he? Unfortunately. And I'm sure there will be a big crowd of dickheads, bellends and fat immature gammons with Junior Jack t-shirts and cans of Stella waiting for him outside the prison when he's finally released. Seriously, these people should go to their nearest forest, find a tree and apologise to it for wasting fucking oxygen, and then go home and get in the fucking bin. I don't doubt that there will be many Tommy fans who will see this video and try to tell me how wrong I am. I'm well up for it. Bring it on, you fucking racist, dumbass, gullible prick. I'll prove you wrong over and over and over again, and I'll back up my position with facts rather than disinformation and racist lies. Tommy Robinson is a dickhead, and if you follow him, what does that make you? In light of that, then maybe I shouldn't expect too many new members or donations to come from this video. That isn't the reason I do it anyway, though. Looking at the media in the last few days has convinced me more than ever that I should carry on making videos, regardless of whether they're commercially successful or not. Though, if you do want to make a one-off donation, then the Buy Me a Coffee link is in the descriptions box, along with a direct link to my PayPal, and also the links for my Patreon and the membership button for memberships, obviously. It's always very, very much appreciated. Now, of course, that isn't all I have to say, especially not about Tommy. But it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-ra-la. Robinson Part 6, Take 1. Fucking hell, I've got a fucking hair in my mouth. To be fair, I've had worse things in my mouth, let's be honest.